This week's episode of The Obsessive Viewer is sponsored by Westworld FM, the latest podcast from the Midwest Podcast Network. Westworld FM seeks to dissect the latest episode of HBO's Westworld TV series every week. Join Alex and Nick as they take a deep dive into the latest TV show from producers Jonathan Nolan and J.J. Abrams. New episodes of the podcast are available on iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play, and more the day after the TV show airs. Check out the show at westworld.fm or search for Westworld FM on your favorite podcasting service. And thank you to Westworld FM and the Midwest Podcast Network for sponsoring this week's episode. This is Matt Hurt at Obsessive Viewer on Twitter.
This is Tiny at Obsessive Tiny on Twitter.
And this is ObsessiveViewer.com's The Obsessive Viewer Podcast. Hello and welcome to The Obsessive Viewer. We're a weekly movie and TV podcast that covers a specific topic, be it genre, trope, movie, or show, each episode. You can find back episodes at ovpodcast.com, find the blog at obsessiveviewer.com, and you can like us on Facebook and join the Facebook group at facebook.com/theobsessiveviewer. So today on the podcast, we are back. Tiny, you weren't here last week.
I wasn't.
Yeah, did you ever get around to seeing Doctor Strange?
I'm awful.
I
did.
Good.
I did.
And and we were just talking about what you're going to bring up for Potpourri.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So today on the podcast, we are going to be reviewing Denis Villeneuve's Arrival. Here's a plot description courtesy of IMDb. A linguist is recruited by the military to assist in translating alien communications. So this movie stars Amy Adams, Jeremy Renner, Forrest Whitaker, and it is written by Eric Heiserer, and based on the story, based on the short story "Story of Your Life," written by Ted Chiang. Which, before I went to the movie, I went into Target and I saw that the book was there, and I had no idea it was based on a book, so I might check that out.
Me too. I didn't know that. Yeah.
Yep. So, Tiny, let's go ahead and kind of talk about this movie. So, you saw it last night?
Correct.
Nice. And what was the theater like? Like, how was the experience of seeing it?
Well, I saw it about 8 o'clock on a weeknight, and so I figured I'd be the only one there, maybe one or two other people. There were actually like 15 people there. I was kind of surprised. I think word of mouth and the positive reviews that it's getting and everything are actually having an effect, and people are like, well, I guess I better go see this thing. So I was pleased to see that. But yeah, it was a good crowd. Everybody was like really, really respectful and everything. Yeah, it was a good theater experience.
Nice. I don't have any like angry theater experience stories this time around.
That's good.
But it is interesting because I got there super early, and I got there so early that the previous screening hadn't let out yet. And so I'm just kind of killing time, and I mean, I don't need to worry about getting into the theater early because now the theater that I go to has assigned seats or reserved seats. And so I'm sitting there, and then like I asked the ticket taker, I'm like, hey, is this seating yet? And then they're like, no, it's going to be probably about 10 more minutes because we need to clean the theater because we had 72 people in there.
Wow.
Which this was like early afternoon on a Sunday. So I'm like, and granted, yeah, that is probably a high volume time for movie theaters, but that was still pretty encouraging.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so Denis Villeneuve, he made Prisoners and Sicario and Enemy. I haven't seen Enemy, but I have seen Prisoners and Sicario. I enjoyed Prisoners quite a bit. Sicario, I still just was not too hot on. And yeah, Tiny, how's your relationship with Denis Villeneuve?
Well, we as a podcast and as podcasters praised Prisoners up and down, and we all consider that to be a very underrated movie for that year. What was it, like 2014, I want to say?
Yes, it was 2015. Sicario. 2015. No. I was looking at Sicario. Prisoners was 2013.
2013, okay. Yeah, so we praised that movie up and down, and I stand by all that. That's a phenomenal movie. I haven't seen Sicario yet.
You still haven't seen Sicario?
I haven't seen it. No, it just wasn't really on my radar that much. So yeah, as soon as I saw Prisoners, I was very intrigued by Denis Villeneuve. So honestly, that wasn't even the reason why I was really excited about Arrival. It was other factors, but that was just a cherry on top.
Nice. Yeah. So let's go ahead and talk about Arrival. What opinion did your brain make an arrival at about this movie after seeing it?
It arrived at a very positive, very, very positive opinion. I was super excited about this because, I mean, I love science fiction from the get-go. Aliens scare the crap out of me, but I find it really intriguing. And so this seems like this story is just so in my wheelhouse. It's not even funny. And so I was highly anticipating the movie just because of the subject matter. And this is kind of one of those scenarios. The story is one of those scenarios where this is one of those things where you're like hanging out with your buddies late at night, or you're like out to dinner with your friends, or you're just trying to kill time, and you think of these goofy scenarios in your head, like, hey, what would you do in this situation? Or if you could be any superhero, what would you be? Or if you could have any superpower, what would it be? It's like, if aliens showed up on your front door, what would you do? Or how would you try to communicate with them? And this movie explores that idea. And I really appreciate and enjoy those kinds of thought exercises. And this movie just like goes to all of the, it goes to several of the, I think, standard answers to this thought exercise, or like some of the most interesting and detailed versions of what someone could do in this situation, or in this thought exercise. And so it was just incredibly satisfying from a story standpoint, or like an intellectual curiosity standpoint. Just, it explored the situation incredibly well, which is what I really wanted it to do.
I agree completely. This movie is the exact type of sci-fi movie that I adore. I love this type of hard sci-fi movie that explores how humans would react, and what humans can do, and what we as a species can accomplish with not supernatural, but a science fiction based scenario, is like when we're confronted with that. I thought that was handled incredibly well, and the kind of human story at the center of this, the story of Amy Adams' character, is really handled extremely well by my standards. It's there are certain aspects to it that I can draw comparisons to other movies that I'll talk about when we talk about spoilers, but just the way that it was handled felt just so great. It was really interesting, and some of the story of her character was really appealing to me. And I was there with it along the whole ride. The only thing is that I felt like the scenes between her and Jeremy Renner, I felt like there wasn't enough explored between those two characters, because they're working together to accomplish this, basically talking to aliens thing. And I kind of wish that there was a little bit more between them to kind of develop their working relationship and their chemistry. But that's a minor complaint.
I agree. I think there was more to explore there.
Yeah.
I think they could have fleshed that out a little bit more. And it ended up being an integral part of the story too, so I wanted it. I did want to see a little bit more there.
Right. They have a couple scenes here and there where they're kind of sitting, I think they're sitting like on a car, and they're talking about it, or they're talking about a little bit about themselves. And I kind of wish that there was more to that. Like there was more of that. But that's a minor complaint, because there's a lot of stuff that's going on in this movie that needed attention.
Right.
Obviously.
Right.
Some of the visual, the craft of the movie is really impressive. Like the shape and size of this huge structure, and the way, I don't even want to give away how they board it and everything.
Mm-hmm.
But the way they do it is so clever, and it's there's a visual component to it that is just kind of jaw-dropping. I really loved the kind of sci-fi elements of them going into the ship.
I agree. There were like some some like cool physics involved, basically. And I think I don't know, I assume there is like an actual ology or like study of language that is a science. I don't know what it's called, but I guess the process of, two different species and two different creatures entirely attempting to communicate with one another. Obviously both species are highly intelligent. Like that's something that, I mean, if you go and try to have a conversation with some highly isolated tribe in the Amazon, that is a massive challenge to learn how to communicate with those people. But at least they're still human, and they're still using these same, larynx and voice box that you have, and they breathe oxygen, and there's common ground there. But with an entirely different species who's not even from your planet, like they don't even breathe oxygen, don't even know if they have mouths, like that is an entirely different thing. And the way that they explored that, and the way that Amy Adams' character successfully navigated that process was just fascinating to watch, like in and of itself. Like just that right there just completely had me hooked in the whole time. I mean, you could have had like crappy characters and a dumb story, and I still would have been fascinated by that. So I mean, yeah, kudos to the screenwriter and Ted Chiang, who wrote the original short story, because that in and of itself was incredibly compelling. One of the things that jumped out to me is that I think we talked about sci-fi a lot, and you've talked about what makes sci-fi good for you. I think one of the things that quality sci-fi has to achieve is you have to ground the story somehow. You have to make the story accessible in some way, and one of the best ways to do that is to ground your characters. Make your characters grounded in something. And you have there's kind of a backstory involved with Amy Adams, her main character, that successfully grounds this story, I think, and makes the character believable and relatable. And then that allows you to access all the crazy sci-fi stuff that's, all the science and all the physics and the, translation that goes on in there. That's all kind of above your head. But if you have a grounded character, you can access those things and at least relate to the character, and that gives you common ground to explore the weird science fiction stuff or the complicated science fiction stuff. And I think the movie pulled it off really well with Amy Adams. I think Jeremy Renner, while a serviceable character and still semi-interesting, I think there was a lot more meat on the bone there for that character as well.
Yeah.
Granted, he was the physicist as opposed to the linguist, like Amy Adams was, so he had the lesser job. He was almost more of an assistant throughout a lot of the film, but like I said, I feel like there was more meat on that bone. I feel like there was more to explore with his character. I don't think it took away from the movie, because I think we were so connected to Amy Adams that we didn't necessarily need to have a remarkably rich character with Jeremy Renner. But I feel like they could have added it in without leaving part of his character on the cutting room floor, I guess.
I agree, and they do some, like, I like that he's a theoretical physicist, and like there's at least twice in the movie, like the first time we meet him, he I can't remember exactly what was said, but he basically says, like, he expresses how he hopes that they want to learn all these things about the aliens. He seems almost giddy with it and says, like, we want to know if they've gotten here with faster than light travel. And
right.
Then, like, there's a moment later where there's like a puzzle, or like there's a not puzzle, but they have a question over something that the aliens that they found. That's vague enough. And like his first thing was like, maybe it's a formula for faster than light travel.
Yeah.
It's like it's like you said, a big feather in the cap of this movie is that it's so grounded in realism, and it's a very grounded movie. And even when you said, like, when it makes you accept all the crazy sci-fi stuff, even the crazy sci-fi stuff is presented in such a down-to-earth way.
Yeah.
That it's like, it is so immersive the way that it happens. Cause like, this isn't a movie like, and I hate to draw this comparison because they are way different movies, but this isn't a movie like, Independence Day where like, okay, the aliens arrive and we see how we react to it and then like the big blow them up fest and everything. This is a just really grounded, smart science fiction movie that's very thought provoking and has some really interesting things to say, not only about, humanity and how we communicate with each other and how we can, and how we would react to a situation like this. But it also tells a very human story about this character that this character faced with some tough, choices in the movie. And it kind of has some broader themes about, choice and the nature of choice and like decisions that we can make that can affect our entire lives. It's a really great depiction of how humans can react to certain situations.
Agreed. Yeah, and to your point about Jeremy Renner's character, he's basically geeking out at the beginning. He's like, like I said, some people would sit around and have a thought exercise about a scenario like this, and Jeremy Renner's character, character name is Ian Donnelly. He has had those kinds of conversations and those thought exercises before, without question. He has. He's done that before, and he's getting to live it out in real life. And so, of course, he's geeking out, and he's like, he's not even like, I don't even think he's really like scared. He's just like, this is exciting. I want to do this. Let's go. Like, this is gonna be fun. Let's get in there. I want to know what they're doing and how they got here and all these questions. And I really appreciated his geekiness throughout the movie.
The great thing about this movie is it's the type of movie that I'm definitely going to buy day one and watch again. I'm going to see this several times, and this is going to be a movie that's going to stay with me, I think, for a while. And we can dive more into the minutia of it and spoilers and talk about more specific things. But I just want to mention a couple things before we do that. One is this movie, I feel, could have really benefited from the work of Roger Deakins, which he is DP on several of Denis Villeneuve's movies. He is responsible for the look of Prisoners and Sicario, which even though I didn't like Sicario just on a movie level in general, that movie is freaking beautiful. Like, it is the way that some of the shots are composed, the way that it's lit, and just the work of Roger Deakins is freaking astounding. And this movie, I'm really kind of disappointed that Deakins didn't work on it. It was the DP on it was Bradford Young, who I think he did a fine job. It didn't really stand out to me. In fact, there were a bunch of scenes, and I don't know if this was intentional or what, but there were a lot of scenes I felt that were just a little dark, like just darkly lit, and like faces were shrouded in shadow in a lot of scenes, and it's just something that I just didn't connect with and didn't understand what the point of was. That like there was a scene where I think Forrest Whitaker is talking to Amy Adams, and I can't remember exactly what they're talking about, but they're like both shrouded in darkness, and it's just kind of, I didn't really understand it, and that kind of didn't take me out of the movie, but it kind of made me wish that we had something more like Roger Deakins has in the past. I
agree. And in the past, and with the visually stunning movies, I've talked about a director or a director of photography or a set designer, any kind of creative person involved with the film having a signature of some kind. And I agree with you. I think this movie kind of, I'd say it almost lacked a visual signature that really, you look at it and say, that's unique, or that's something I attribute to this director or this director of photography or something like that. And clearly you had that reaction. I wasn't as familiar with Roger Deakins or his style. I'm not accustomed to it, but I could tell that this didn't necessarily have anything to set it apart from other highly visual science fiction movies. I don't think there was anything that really set it apart that much. Again, not to say it was bad. It was a really, really beautiful movie, and lots of there's some fantastic establishing shots of the craft and some landscape work that I think was really, really well done. But again, it wasn't especially unique, or there wasn't anything again to set it apart. So I don't know if you could call it a drawback, but I think it could have been even further improved. The movie itself could have been even further improved, or even better, with a truly talented director of photography.
Yeah.
It felt like a Denis Villeneuve movie. Like, I think his signature was there, but I think there were some other things maybe that were missing just a little bit. Following that thread, I really enjoyed the music in several spots of this movie.
I did too. Especially
when they're going into the ship for the first time. There's like this really this really powerful and abrupt music that they use. It's like it's a very peak and valley kind of song. There'll be this like really brash and harsh. I don't know my instruments that well, but
I don't know either.
Yeah, like a very harsh, abrupt influx of sound and music and instruments, and then it'll very quickly go away, and you have almost silence.
Yes.
And it was just really, it really jumped out. Like, it really jumped out when I was watching this part of the movie, and it made those scenes. It's just people walking in a tunnel, essentially, but it was just super powerful, and I think the music really brought that scene together. And I think you can say that of several scenes throughout this movie were enhanced and really had the music make the scene in several scenes throughout the movie.
I felt like the music at times kind of reminded me, and maybe this is an easy comparison, or maybe it was something that I was looking for more than it was there, but it kind of evoked memories of 2001: A Space Odyssey.
Yeah,
like that, and that is something I really appreciated.
I think so too. It also made me think a little bit of Altered States.
Oh yeah,
which has very, very abrupt and harsh music. Kind of made me think of that a little bit. Yeah, it was really good. I honestly, I didn't even look up who the composer was.
It was hang on, I'll look it up. But I know that some parts of the music, it wasn't necessarily all him. Like the music was composed by him, but they also used a couple tracks from Max Richter, who and I promise this will be the only time I bring this up, because I've talked about it a lot all the time in the history of this podcast. But he did the score for the first episode of this recent season of Black Mirror.
Okay.
Yep, and that's like the only score from Black Mirror that's available, like, to purchase.
Oh, okay.
And I bought it because it's amazing.
Interesting.
For the episode Nosedive. But anyway, the composer for this, the score was done by Johan Johansson.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, he was composer for all Denis Villeneuve's other work, and then also Theory of Everything.
Okay.
And some other stuff.
Nice.
Yeah, and is there anything else that we should go over before we dive into spoilers?
I think that's about it.
I think so too. And there's a lot that we can discuss here in spoilers. So, what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and give you guys a chance to skip over the spoilers. Basically I'll play a clip from the trailer, to give you time to skip over the spoilers. You can check the show notes to find timestamps to when you can jump over to our Potpourri section. And those show notes are also available at obsessiveviewer.com/OV193. And so, we'll go into spoilers here in a moment.
There are days that define your story beyond your life. Like the day they arrived.
The objects measure at least...
I'm Colonel G.T. Weber from Army Intelligence. Pack your bags. You're at the top of everyone's list when it comes to translations. Priority 1. What do they want? Where are they from? You'll be reporting to me, but you'll be working with him when you're in the show.
That's what they call him, the UFO.
Who's being carted off in the medevac?
Not everyone is wired for what you're about to do.
So what do they look like?
You'll see soon enough.
Every 18 hours, a door opens up. That's where we go in.
Okay, so spoilers on for Denis Villeneuve's Arrival. Once again, we're going to dive into spoilers here, and there's a lot to unpack in the spoiler section for this movie, so let's just dive right in. Tiny, what did you think of... We talked in our spoiler-free review a lot about Amy Adams' character and everything, and we neglected, at least I guess by design, neglected to even mention the subplot involving her and her daughter. And I guess to kick off spoilers, there's so much to that subplot, but the opening scene, like this was a movie where I watched the first scene, and the first scene shows her basically narrating the first years of her daughter's life and then revealing that her daughter dies at a young age. And like the way that is just presented to us right at the outset, and the beauty of the words used for the narration, like I was like, that was the moment where I was like, oh man, this movie, this is gonna do something to me. Yeah. It was incredible. And talk about a gut punch when you know, we see that she's dead. I was just like, I think I audibly, not gasped, but I was like, oh man, like I kind of did like one of those because I was already invested. So how did you feel about the story of her and her child before the reveal that it was, you know, science fiction-y?
I had the same reaction. This may be a kind of a strange comparison, but it reminded me of the opening scenes of the movie Up.
Yeah, a little bit.
It slaps you in the face with it, and it's like we're gonna go deep in this movie, and you're gonna like it, and you're gonna react to this. You're gonna have an emotional reaction to this,
right,
and deal with it because that's what's gonna get you into this movie. And I talked about grounding the characters. That they don't even start out with any goofy alien stuff or any science at all. They immediately go, "This is your character. This is the guide through this story. This is your in to this story and to what we're going to do here. And this is why it's important because of this that happened to her in her life." And it puts it right up on the screen. And like you said, you're instantly invested. And it was really well done while also being exactly what the audience needs. Like it was so effective and so, I would almost say it was like formulaic to get you involved in the story, but it was so well done and so necessary that you don't really care that it was formulaic. I agree. That was just an incredible way to kick off the movie, and it was perfect.
Absolutely. And the fact that they kept cutting to it, a lesser movie or a movie that was put together with less care than this movie was put together with could have just exploited that as the twist. Like it could have just, the entire movie could have been built around the fact that she was actually experiencing memories of the future, having flash forwards of a child that hasn't been born yet or conceived yet or what have you. The entire movie could have been centered around that. But when it gets to that point, I did not, like, I was so on board with the movie that it felt like it didn't evoke the oh my god, what a twist thing, like, right, oh, Bruce Willis was dead the whole time kind of thing. It was like oh my god, like this is what's happening, and it was just kind of like I was discovering the movie as it was just showing itself to me. Right.
I agree. It could have been cheap. It could have been gimmicky, and it really wasn't. It was they used that tactic, or they went that direction because it made sense, not because it was shocking and they were trying to, you know, play at your emotions, I guess. But while we're on this thread and talking about this, was it? I guess I understood it, but I just thought it was weird that she was basically having these. They weren't dreams. She was having like memories,
right, throughout
the first part of this movie. That as the audience, we thought it was flashbacks to a time earlier in her life where she lost her daughter, we come to find out that it's actually events in the future where she's going to have a daughter with Jeremy Renner, and those are the memories she's having,
right?
But they're actually in the future. So it's weird to me that the crux of the conflict, I guess the climax, is that she figures out the formula that the aliens gave to her.
It's a little circular.
It's kind of weird. It kind of threw me because she basically has this epiphany where she understands their formula, and it's basically, it almost rewires your brain to think the same way that they do, and it allows you to perceive time differently. But throughout the whole movie, she's been perceiving time differently, and it's like, why would she? It's just weird that she would be experiencing what are essentially memories of something that didn't happen to her, and it's
right.
It's just I feel like she would react differently, or she'd be more vocal about that with other people.
I think I can feel this one, Tiny.
Okay.
When there's a moment in the movie where Jeremy Renner says to her, it's kind of at the time it's kind of a throwaway line, where he says that, there are theories where that say that when you study someone else's language and immerse yourself in another language, you start thinking in that language. And I think that's what happened to her throughout the movie, is that she's immersing herself in the alien language, and the nature of the alien language is that they can perceive time and communicate that perception of time throughout it. And so she isn't given superpowers or anything like that. She's just opening, like, her studying this alien language is opening her mind to perception of time the way that the aliens can perceive time. That was my read on it. And I feel like that can kind of be poke holes in it by saying that the opening scene is her having a memory of it. But I think that's more that's more us showing it's outside the timeline of the movie.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. That was how I was. 'Cause I kind of had that same thought too. I was like, well, like, as I was driving home, I was like, well, wait, she was having all these things. And I remember thinking, like, well, that one scene where she has this weird dream sequence where she's, I think it's like when he asks her something, and maybe that scene, or he may be asking if she's okay or having visions and stuff, and then she's like, no, and then she looks and there's the alien there, vision of it. But then I realized that no, that's just her brain is rewiring itself to be on the same level as the aliens. Mm-hmm. That's my read on it, at least, and that's one of the reasons why I'm really excited to see this movie again. I honestly, if I had the time, I would have gone to the movie theater again last night to see it. Like, I wanted to so badly.
Yeah, I'd really like to. Yeah, I can't wait to see it again as well, and maybe it'll make a little more sense to me when I see it again. Yeah. Yeah.
So the actual twist, the reveal that she can see the future, like, it hit me it comes with more poignancy than it would have with, if it was played for a gimmick, because this entire movie isn't about her communicating with the aliens. It isn't about, world peace or anything so much as it is about her confronted with the realization that she's going to have a child. That child is going to die young. Her husband and her are going to divorce. And it's this incredible choice where she's confronted with this choice of whether or not, knowing all of the terrible stuff that's going to happen, knowing the pain that she's going to feel later, does she still make those choices? Does she still allow herself to go through those things? Does she alter her life when confronted with that future? And those kind of thought experiments and those kinds of those thought experiments are things like, that's stuff that I do on a daily basis.
Yeah. Like,
I think about questions like that, and that's why this movie spoke to me so strongly, because it just is the visual representation of those thoughts that I have, and it's a really powerful human thing to show, because it's such a human reaction what she has, and it's such a beautiful depiction of that in a very grounded and down to earth way, even though it's it's very heavy science fiction.
Yeah. Okay, that's true. I disagree. No, I'm kidding.
Oh, yeah.
No, that's yeah. I guess I hadn't really thought about it, or I hadn't made that connection. But that does make a lot of sense.
Yeah, because there's a scene where I think. Well, actually, there's a scene where after she's shown that, after she's shown by the aliens that she's, she can see the future. There's a scene where she's talking to Jeremy Renner after she realizes that she's gonna have a baby with this guy. Lois Lane and Hawkeye are going to get down. And then there's a moment where she asks him, like, point blank, she's like, if you knew the future, if you knew the terrible things that lie ahead of you, would you be able to make the decisions, or would you change it? Or I don't remember exactly how she said it, but that was a moment that I really loved. I loved this freaking movie so much.
Me too.
I really did. Yeah, so let's see. Do you anything else on that matter, or should we do other discussion?
Yeah, one of the things I wanted to talk about was the fact that this is kind of a common thread amongst this sort of alien invasion scenario, is how humanity chooses to work either against each other or with each other. Mm-hmm. That's always an interesting thing to watch play out, and it was really integral to the story, and I really appreciated what I would call the authenticity of it, to where, internationally, we're all like pretty petty, really.
Right.
When you think about it, it's all about grandstanding and who's the most powerful, and it's
building
very
walls.
Right. It's all very clumsy and petty. Petty is the right word, I think. It's kind of childish. And so to see those characteristics come through in a very realistic way was, I think this is one of the better versions of that scenario playing itself out. Someone makes a move, and then every other country and government reacts to it.
Yeah.
And, it's all about, like, okay, well, what are they doing? And it's like, well, what do they know? Are they telling us the whole truth? We know we're not telling them the whole truth, so maybe they're not. It's just all this, it's like spy games and like mind games. It's very cloak and dagger, and it's interesting to see who's going to make what move and who's going to do what, and that whole human aspect to the science fiction makes it really interesting and fascinating to watch. That, despite this just absolutely incredible scenario that all of humanity is getting to experience, we're all being really petty and like talking shit about each other. It's really ridiculous, but again, we talk about it grounding the story and making sense, and it's a drama that I think all of us can relate to, and it's interesting to watch despite the ridiculousness of it, I guess.
Absolutely, and that kind of goes to the realism of it, that is how we would react to that kind of thing. And I love that there's this ambiguity for a lot of the movie, an ambiguity over what the intentions of the aliens are.
Right.
And what I love about it is that this movie isn't an alien invasion movie. It's an alien visit and watch us react movie.
Right.
Like, they don't do anything, and the communication, there's a bit of a communication barrier there, but it's fascinating to me to see that as a concept, we have, just on the conceptual level, we just have 12, I think it was 12, different crafts on different parts of the globe, and then to see how humanity reacts to that and see how we communicate with each other as well as with the aliens, and how there's a lack of communication here and there. It's really fascinating to see how that goes about, or how that unfolds. And one of the other kind of faults for the movie to me, and I may feel differently when I revisit it, but I kind of feel like Michael Stuhlbarg's character, I kind of feel like I love that guy as an actor. I really do. But I feel like he was maybe not underused or miscast, but maybe misused.
Okay.
Like, I feel like they didn't really do the legwork to really show what his not necessarily what his job there was, but why he was kind of I guess antagonistic or against the why he was so focused on not letting them do what they needed to do, essentially. He was kind of he was wanting to push things a certain way, and I kind of wish that they would have explored that more. At least that's my read on it.
Yeah, he was a big stereotype, really.
Yeah.
You know, the CIA agent, the intelligence guy who's always looking for the next piece of intel, just because it's kind of like, it's almost like ambition. Like, well, I want to be the guy who has all the information because it's going to make me look good. It's my job. As opposed to, like, not recognizing the situation you're in, and that, you know, this is an unprecedented moment in human history, and you're treating it like an intelligence gathering mission,
right.
You know. And he was, like you said, super antagonistic to an annoying degree, which I think is maybe realistic. I mean, I don't know. No one knows how the hell the CIA operates.
Right.
But, you know, he at least from a fiction standpoint, that character is always a stereotype. He's always an extreme. You know, it's never just the random CIA dude. So I don't know if I would call his character a fault. I think he was kind of he was just another cog in the story machine, and I think he needed to be there to create conflict and drive the characters. I think he played a big role.
He felt a little more functional than anything else. Like, I wish that they would have fleshed out his motivations and his character a bit more.
Right. That's true. His motivation's a good word, because we didn't necessarily know what his was at all times. So yeah. I think Michael Stolberg's just so awesome that it's hard to find fault with what he does.
He really is fantastic.
But I see what you're saying.
Yeah. So once we get the reveal that she can perceive time differently, well, first let's back up a little bit. There's a bomb in the thing.
Yeah. That
moment, that sequence was really pretty remarkable, and it kind of goes back to us talking about the shift in gravity, and you know, them entering the craft. And Denis Villeneuve, he's working on the Blade Runner sequel.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, it's coming out next year. And it's he and Roger Deakins is working on it with him too. So. Yeah.
Nice.
So that movie, like that moment in this movie where they enter the craft and there's that shift in gravity, they have, it's just this beautiful shot where they're on the lift and then they climb in and they're on the wall, and then we get that shot of them, in front of them, with the camera showing like how deep they are and how far down it is. It's a very jarring shot, and that made me very eager to see what he does with Blade Runner, because that would be amazing. That just what he can do in that world. But there's the moment where the bomb goes off in the ship. It's just, I kind of wish there was a little bit more developed on why that was. I kind of wish there was not necessarily build up, but kind of like I guess maybe a secret like plan to do that. It kind of felt sudden. That's like, oh, they're just gonna blow up the aliens. It kind of felt like it was a little underdeveloped there. But I liked the lead up to it, because that was incredibly tense for me, and I liked how it was done, and the visuals of it were just remarkable. What did you think of that sequence and of that element of the story, Tiny?
I appreciated it. It reminded me a lot of the movie Contact, where there's the whole culty kind of reaction to the anti-science reaction to it, I guess. And there's a bomb in that movie as well. Spoiler alert. It reminded me of that, but I think it made sense in this movie, and I think it was used much more subtly, and it to better effect in my opinion. I liked that part because it kind of shows, you know, we're displaying what it is to be human in the movie, and the aliens are experiencing that for the first time, and we don't really think of it from their perspective. Mm-hmm. And that moment, I think, provided the audience a good opportunity to like look at the humanity displayed in the film from the perspective of the aliens, and that, okay, why do I have this? The aliens are like, why do we have this really great working relationship with these two people? But then these other people bring a bomb in and try to kill us. Mm-hmm. Like, it makes you think. It's a thought-provoking aspect to the story, mm-hmm. and I think it's an important thing to watch, and it's a good experience to add into this kind of movie. Again, a little bit, I don't know if I'd say formulaic, but it's a little. I kind of expected some kind of reaction or some kind of anti science or kind of zealotry, right? Kind of reaction to this. And I think I sort of disagree with you. I think it was led up to really well, and I think it was, again, I think the subtlety of it made it satisfying.
See, maybe my opinion will change when I revisit it, but I just felt like there was talk about they should attack them, but I felt like it was just. I feel like after the explosion, there's kind of this. My memory is that there's kind of this throwaway line that's like, oh, there was just a couple of soldiers who took it upon themselves, like that kind of thing, and it felt like there should have been more to that than just that plot line.
The reaction to it and the fallout from it was a little underdone. Mm-hmm. I will say that, but you're right. It's like, oh yeah, they just said, oh, it's just a couple of rogue soldiers doing their own thing,
right?
When it was really a much bigger deal than that. But I got it though. I think it made sense from thinking militaristically. It's like a preemptive strike. It's a posturing move. It's not necessarily an attack. It's a display of strength. It's one of those things, and I can understand why a militarily inclined individual like those soldiers would go down that path and feel like we need to do this to protect ourselves. I can understand how they got there, and again, I think it was used to good effect in the movie.
Okay, that's fine.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I'd still have issues with it, so we may have to agree to disagree.
Okay.
But what I do want to mention about that is seeing that juxtaposed with, I guess when I revisit it, maybe I'll feel better about this, because the way that it's, like we see a lot of Amy Adams and Jeremy Renner's perception of the aliens, and then we see how the military is working with other government agencies, and they're all working together, and it's kind of a fragile coexisting there and everything. And then we see shots throughout the movie of civil unrest throughout the world after the aliens arrive. And I think that's a really important thing to depict in the movie, and I think that they handled that quite well, because that's done enough throughout the movie that it's developed well to show what the human reaction outside of the people inside working on it are. So I just appreciated that aspect of it, and yeah.
Agreed. Yeah, I think that's another kind of interesting human aspect to explore with this kind of story is how does the public react to it? And there wasn't a lot of it in the movie. I didn't think there needed to be a lot of it necessarily.
Right.
I feel, again, it was more of a subtle approach to that aspect of the story. And I thought it worked out fine. I think you could make a whole other movie about the ground reaction to that, I guess. And we've kind of gotten that in some other movies, and those movies sucked. So.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So kind of, I think we're running out of things to say.
Yeah.
But I do want to mention the ending. The kind of time loopy, circular kind of time travel thing where she she remembers that she tells, like, she has a vision of the future of the I think it's I don't know if it was General, but Shang, the Chinese military guy, who, like, they were on the brink of World War III, and she has a vision that she speaks to him at an engagement down the road that's like, presumably, world peace, hey, cool stuff. And he says to her that you called me and you said something that I'll never forget, And then he says, "You told me what my wife said on her deathbed," or something to that effect. Then he tells her what he says, and then in the present, she steals a satellite phone, calls him, and everything's good. And I love time travel. I love it. I love it more than I love it as a storytelling device. So that doesn't bother me. Just the circular logic of it is kind of like it's just interesting to me. I don't have a problem with it, but I can see how other people would have a problem with it. And Tiny, how do you feel about the fact that she knew what to say because the general told her what to say after she said it in the past?
I thought it's a fun little time loopy thing. I enjoy that kind of stuff. We're both fans of time travel, and that's one of those things. It's almost like one of those quirky lines that you get. It's like, I don't know, like, it's not where we're going, it's when. It's one of those goofy lines like that. And obviously, it wasn't that tongue in cheek in that way. It wasn't meant in a comical fashion, but it's one of those cool things you get to do when you use time travel. And I appreciated it. I thought it was very kind of inspiring because it appeals on such an emotional level, and it was the result of such an emotional thing. I just think the movie wasn't about time travel, and it didn't even attempt to establish the rules of how time travel works in this example. It just says, it just laid it out very plainly to where you just kind of know how it works, and it was used to change the world, and I guess it's such an integral part of the story. I think it was the right thing to do. I think it was a logical step to take in the story, and I don't know. I really didn't have a problem with it at all.
I agree, and like I said, I didn't have a problem with it either. Anything. I can see how other people would have a problem with it.
Okay, yeah.
And one of the things that I thought, in general, I mean, it's kind of cheesy in this kind of story of, like, oh, they suddenly, like, this event has suddenly brought about world peace, and then it didn't really click with me until just this moment when we're talking about it. But it works here because the idea in my head is that she learned this language, and by learning this language, she can perceive time, which means, and then she wrote a book titled The Universal Language. In a very George McFly fashion, she opens a box of her book about the alien language. So theoretically, every world leader, many like most of the literate planet can read this book and then learn this language. I mean, maybe that's not as easy a bridge as I'm making it, but
right.
If like the planet can adopt this language or can study this language and then perceive time in a different way, then that's world peace there because and I think one of the themes of this movie is that we can't see what's in the future. We don't know what's going to happen. That's kind of what's depicted in the room with the military angle of it, is that they don't know what the other people are going to do. They don't know what the aliens' intentions are. There are so many variables that are going to lead to war and just terrible events. But if they can perceive time in a different way, that can achieve world peace. So that's my justification for why I didn't have a problem with them being like, oh, everything's all hunky dory at the end of the day in the future.
Okay.
Yeah. So I feel like we've talked this movie out a little bit. Where's it going to rank on? Well, is it going to make your top 10 list?
Yeah, it will. It'll be probably. I don't know where it's going to end up, but it's going to be on the list. I would probably guess in the middle somewhere.
Yeah, it's probably going to be pretty high for me. It could very well be. It could very well be number one.
Wow.
Yep.
Nice.
And speaking of number one, or speaking of it being number one, that's a rough transition, but we posted in the Facebook group, which you can find at facebook.com/theobsessiveviewer. In the Facebook group, I posted, tonight we're recording a review of Arrival. If you've seen the movie, let us know what you thought in the comments. And we got 2 responses because I don't think a lot of people went out to see Arrival. Friend and frequent guest Robert Feckus, who I asked him if he wanted to be on the podcast today, and he said no because he's getting his first consultation for his first session for his new tattoo. That's going to be all Star Wars theme, a Star Wars sleeve, I believe. Mm-hmm. Didn't mean that to rhyme. And also it's date night with the missus.
Yeah.
So I told him that I said, so you're saying your marriage is more important than being a guest on my podcast? Real cool, Feckus. Real cool. And then he said, I hear y'all file for divorce tomorrow. So anyway, but he said his response to the question on the Facebook group was, loved it, number 1 for the year, most unique take on an alien invasion film I have seen. And I thought that was very, very good. I agree, and we'll see how it shakes out when I do my top 10 list.
Yeah, me too.
Yep. And then friend of the show, Tony Troxel, who we may be getting on the Rogue One episode.
Nice.
Maybe, possibly. He said it's on my need to see list, but time has been short. I sadly might have to wait until Blu-ray. And I'm very curious what he'll think about it, because he is obviously, well versed in science fiction.
Right.
So let's see. That does it for our review of Arrival. We've arrived at the end of our review.
Oh boy.
Yep. So to wind down the podcast, we're going to go into our Potpourri section, which, let's see, Potpourri is the section of the podcast where we can talk about anything that we've watched lately, anything that we're into, anything we want, as long as it smells good. And Tiny, are you only going to bring up the one thing we discussed, or are you going to do you want to give your thoughts on Doctor Strange as well?
I can briefly discuss my thoughts on Doctor Strange.
Okay, why don't you get us kicked off with that, and then I'll give mine, and then you can give your interesting one.
Sure, yeah. So I had trouble trying to get out to the theater to see Doctor Strange. Mm-hmm. I've had a ton going on the last couple of weeks. So I went to see it finally in the theater, and I liked it a lot. I knew I was going to like it because it's something a little bit different than what we've been getting from Marvel lately, and Benedict Cumberbatch is awesome. So I was expecting to like it, and I certainly did. I think it had. I really just love the visuals of it. Altering the universe that you're in, or basically changing the aspects of physics is an incredible thing to watch. Mm-hmm. So that was really satisfying. I loved the comic relief throughout it. I thought it was great. Benedict Cumberbatch, the character of Stephen Strange, is very fun to watch. He's similar to Tony Stark. Mm-hmm. He's got that cockiness to him. But still, he's still his own character. He's not a derivation of Tony Stark. So those are the things I loved about it. I just kind of feel like the plot was a little bit forgettable.
Interesting.
The movie itself was almost just a little bit forgettable. I would still give it like a strong 7, maybe 7.5 out of 10. But I wasn't like blown away by it. I don't know that Doctor Strange is like my new favorite Marvel character or anything like that. But it was definitely an enjoyable movie. I want to see it again to see if it holds up. I think it did have a villain problem that we've talked about several times in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. The villain was a little misguided and a little plain, maybe. So yeah, I thought it was a good movie, and I'm excited to see Stephen Strange team up with some of the Avengers and interact with other Marvel heroes. That's going to be terrific dialogue. That's going to be really good. So I'm really looking forward to that. I think he's a great character. He was a great introduction to the Marvel Cinematic Universe. But I'm more excited about what's going to happen in the future as opposed to the movie we saw itself.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Nice. Did you listen to the review I did with Feckus?
I haven't had a chance yet.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah. Sorry.
No, that's cool. So So you can like teleport to and from work. You don't like listen to things. You don't have to drive distance.
I mean, hey, blame We Are Libertarians. They've been putting out like 2.5 hour long episodes.
That's true. I actually did listen to their entire post-election one.
Yeah.
Which that was interesting. But anyway, that's cool. That's cool. Your paycheck may be, a little late this
paycheck.
week.
Paycheck?
Yeah.
And you don't mean the charmingly underrated movie with Ben Affleck?
Is it really charmingly underrated?
Hell no, it's awful.
I was going to say. Oh, that went off the rails. Anyway, interesting. It's funny because in the review, I think one of my, I don't really remember what all I said, but I didn't connect with the comic relief that much.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so you'll have to listen to the review to find out what else I thought of it.
Okay,
but
I will.
Yeah, good.
I will.
Yeah. I forgot that there was a really great pun.
I'll hear it in the episode.
No, it wasn't in the episode. It was like I felt terrible because we did our Facebook post in the Facebook group, and Tony Troxel he posted that he had a review on his website, so I'll put a link to that in the show notes again. And then I felt bad because when I read the comments, I didn't mention his other comment. He said, "Seriously though, not my favorite Marvel Cinematic Universe movie. I still love Guardians of the Galaxy, but it was towards the top. Beautiful effects. Good job by Benedict Cumberbatch. And Benedict Wong was just a gift as Wong. He was wonderful."
Nice.
So I appreciated that so much. But
nice, yeah.
anyway, check out our episode. It was the last episode, OV192, for our full review, my full review with Fecus of Doctor Strange. And let's see, should I go ahead and bring up my potpourri?
Sure.
Okay, so I have not been able to watch much lately because I didn't mention this. I was gonna mention this at the top for some reason, but I had a really busy weekend, Tiny. Because over the course of a weekend, I recorded 5 episodes of Anthology.
Holy crap.
And that includes prepping them, doing like all the legwork and everything. Like I recorded, like it's ridiculous. So I was like super proud of myself. But, I'll actually talk briefly about this while I'm on that subject, and then I'll go into my real potpourri. But, it's funny that Arrival came out at the time it did, because last weekend before I saw this movie, I watched a movie for Anthology. Anthology is my solo side project podcast, but the format of it is I review one episode of The Twilight Zone, and then I have a bonus review of a related movie or show. So in the coming weeks on Anthology, I'm going to be reviewing an episode of The Twilight Zone, and then a bonus review is going to be for this movie from 1957 called The 27th Day. And this movie it's really interesting because the movie is about, for context, I watched this a few days before Arrival, or it may have been a week before Arrival, actually, or earlier in the week. And so this movie is about, it's called The 27th Day. It's about an alien ship that abducts 5 different people on the planet Earth. And they bring them aboard a spaceship. They sit them down. They say, "You guys are representatives of Earth. So, it's, the late 50s, Cold War and everything." He's like, "Well," the alien's like, "You guys are on the brink of destroying your species and the planet. We need this planet. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to give each one of you a capsule. This capsule is a weapon that if you can telepathically open it up, and then you can give it a location for it to launch, and it will wipe out, and it has like some spread of the world. It'll wipe out the human race, but leave the planet intact."
Wow.
So, yeah, so there are 5 different people from different countries, from different areas, from different, from different standings and everything. There are some people in the military. There are just civilians. It's a diverse group. And they're each handed one of these, and then they're set out on the planet. And the whole time I'm watching this, I'm thinking, holy crap, this is a really compelling, plot. Like, this is something that I would love to see updated. And then I go and see Arrival, which has very similar, some similarities to it. But, at the end of the day, the 27th Day was not, I mean, it was kind of B movie, a little bit B movie. Some of the things that it was trying to say were really on the nose, and it was kind of disappointing. Not disappointing, but it was a solid movie. I actually didn't usually when I pick my bonus reviews for Anthology, I usually pick something that is like easily accessible. So like worst case scenario, I'll get something that I'll have to rent from Google Play, or usually it's like an old classic episode of an anthology show from back in the day that I can watch on YouTube for free. But in this case, it wasn't available anywhere. It wasn't even available digitally to buy or rent. So I actually had to buy a DVD of, it's actually right there, Tiny. It's like 6 vintage science fiction movies. So that's one of them. But anyway, that turned into its own potpourri segment. But, that's the 27th Day. I'll talk about it in more detail, or probably about the same amount of detail in an upcoming episode of Anthology, which can be found at anthologypod.com. And then Tiny, do you want to go ahead and do yours, and then I'll do one to wrap us up, and then we'll call it a night?
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
So my other entry for Potpourri is also going to be pretty brief, mostly out of embarrassment. My fiance has been watching Gilmore Girls. She's never seen any of it before. And so she's watching through it for the first time. It's on Netflix. And I just by happenstance or just by situation have watched some of it. That show was never on my radar because it's called Gilmore Girls, and I knew what it's about. It's basically about a daughter's relationship with her mother. That's basically what it is. And it was just never on my radar because it's like, how am I going to relate to this show? And I think that's like, I think the people who created the show were like, yeah, we realized that this is going to appeal to a pretty specific demographic. So let's not even necessarily try to appeal to another demographic. But I've watched some of the show, and I have trouble connecting with a lot of it because it's 95% of the show is people talking to each other. And of that 95%, 70% of it is the daughter having conversations with and interacting with her mother. So it's hard for me to find something to connect to there. But having watched some of it, what blows me away about the show is that the characters are phenomenal.
Nice.
They are so good. Lauren Graham playing Lorelai Gilmore, the mother of the show, is hysterical. Like, she's like a dream girl because she's so, I think she's smoking hot, first of all. And secondly, she's incredible. She has an incredible sense of humor. She's hilarious. And she's just a charming, fun person, like very free-spirited, fun person. And so her character is just great to watch just because of how she reacts to things. She's just really funny. Nice. And the teenage daughter is really, really smart and intelligent and is able to keep up with everybody.
Alexis Bledel.
Alexis Bledel.
Did you say that already?
I didn't know.
No, okay.
And then
what's her character's name again?
Rory Gilmore.
Roy, there you go.
Yeah. And then the male lead, Scott Patterson, is the actor, plays Luke. He's the owner of the diner in the local town. He's like a very curmudgeonly kind of perpetually annoyed guy. It's probably how a lot of the guys feel who are forced to watch the show. Okay. So that's kind of the in for the male audience, I think, of the show. But the characters are just really great. I love how everyone just has their role and they all play it to an exact T, and it's really satisfying. So, if you're a dude and you're like, yeah, my girlfriend wants me to watch Gilmore Girls with her, or my daughter wants me to watch Gilmore Girls with her, or something like that, give it a shot. Cause I mean, like I said, I don't love it, and I'm not gonna watch it on my own or anything, but it can be incredibly entertaining to watch episodes of it. So
what I love is that you started this by saying, I'm going to talk this is going to be brief, mostly out of embarrassment, but oh my God. Okay. Lorelai is amazing. and this guy is like, he's a curmudgeon guy and like, he's kind of my into it. And it's really interesting. And Rory's so smart.
The plots are stupid. It's like, oh my gosh, I have to do this group project with a girl I hate at school. And that's the plot of the episode. I'm like, that's stupid. I don't care. But like, the characters make it enjoyable.
Sure.
Give it a shot.
It's interesting because I've actually heard that, the perception of it is that, it's, Gilmore Girls, it's a sappy, mother-daughter, chick show, if that's a thing. But what I've heard is that it's actually pretty compelling and there's actually some good stuff in it that's not gender specific, that, I feel like my idea of it is that it's a show that's kind of gotten a bad rap, it's been billed as a woman-centric show when it's it's got some stuff for some other for men as well that they can appreciate too, I guess. I don't know, but I haven't seen a single frame of it, so I
would agree with that. It's misunderstood.
Okay,
nice. It's not a bad show by any stretch. Yeah.
Are you guys gonna finish it up before the new Netflix thing comes out?
I doubt it. I don't even know what season we're in or she's in, because she obviously she watches a lot of it without me.
Sure,
but, I'll catch. Sure. No, I'm serious.
No,
I'm serious. Sure. I've probably seen like 10 episodes altogether, and she's watched probably 30 or so.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
So.
Yeah. Well, that's cool. I might give it a shot at some point when I have time. I don't know when.
Yeah.
But yeah. I was actually thinking about this because I haven't even had a chance. I talked a while ago on the podcast how I'm rewatching The Wire, and I'm like still halfway through season 4, but it's one of those things where I rewatch. I started a rewatch and I got really deep into it and then just fell off, because it's one of those things where I had a lot of stuff going on and I didn't have time to commit to watching it. So after a few days, the routine, I broke free of the routine and I just haven't gone back to it, which I really need to. But what I was thinking of doing is, like, after finishing that rewatch, I kind of wanted to post a poll in the Facebook group saying, like, okay, well, hey, I've just finished rewatching The Wire. Which should I watch next? Should I watch this? And then, like, whatever gets voted highest is the next show that I will watch from beginning to end.
Wow.
So yeah, I'll try that. But, if you're listening to this and you haven't joined the Facebook group, do that right now, because it is fun.
Yeah, I enjoy it as well.
Yeah, I like having it, and it's fun with more people. So go to that at facebook.com/theobsessiveviewer. And before we go, I'm gonna go ahead and go into my last bit of potpourri, and then we can call it an evening. So I watched this movie about a month ago, and I don't think I've brought it up on the podcast yet because the timing didn't work out. It was like I watched it, I think, right around either right before or right after Shocktober in Irvington, and then by the next time we recorded, it was the Heartland episode, and so it just I haven't had a chance to talk about it. But I saw The Accountant, starring Ben Affleck, and that movie is it's a freaking mess.
Oh, really?
It is so I did not like it. It was basically, the plot is that this guy, he's an accountant. He has Asperger's, and so he's on the spectrum, and so he makes, I don't even remember the exact plot, but it's like he makes a living, as J.K. Simmons says in the trailer, he uncooks the books for some of the world's most dangerous people. And it's like drug kingpins and I don't know if terrorist groups would fall into that, but I don't know. The reason why I'm so hazy on it is that it's just not really depicted that clearly. And there's some egregious, terrible choices in this movie, from a storytelling perspective. And if you break down The Accountant, there are about 3 different movies running concurrently throughout it. Like 3 different plot lines that could necessitate an entire movie themselves.
Wow.
Running concurrently, and it is jarring. Like, one of the ones is that J.K. Simmons is this Treasury agent who's about to retire, so he brings this young analyst on to track down Ben Affleck because and she wants to be an agent, essentially. So that's interesting and stuff. But this is literally the first scene of the movie. He has information about her history. That's like he blackmails her into doing this, into working this investigation. No reason whatsoever why they would need to do that. Like, there's no reason why they would need to have a plot line where he has some secret about her past that she lied about on her application, and he's compelling her into doing this work for him. There is no reason for that to be a thing in the movie. And Anna Kendrick is in this movie as someone who Ben Affleck's character kind of gets kind of forms a little bit of a bond with. And there's some action stuff here and there, but like toward there's a moment where their storyline reaches a point where they have to go into hiding, essentially. Ben Affleck and Anna Kendrick barely see her at all the rest of the movie. like there's a whole sequence at the end of the movie, like the whole climax of the movie. In the middle of it, I'm thinking like, wait, what happened to Anna Kendrick? Because that just completely, that did nothing. Like, nothing happened there. And then there's a whole subplot involving his father and memories of his father, and also John Bernthal's in the movie as this operative guy who's kind of hunting him down, sort of. And it's all a big jumbled mess, and it was just not to my liking at all. And some of the quote unquote twists and turns in the plot, like they were telegraphed a mile away, and it was not a satisfying movie. And worst of all, it treats Asperger's and autism as this weird, like, it treats it as a superpower kind of thing, and it's kind of tasteless in a sense. It's not as like offensively bad as you might think, but it's not very kind to it. It's kind of ugly. The way that they handle that subject matter and make it into somewhat of an action thriller movie.
Huh, that's weird.
Yeah, it was not good. I really didn't like the movie. Yeah, and there's so many things about it that I wasn't a fan of, but I don't want to go into any more spoilers than I already did. But anyway, that's The Accountant. It's a movie. I didn't like it.
I didn't think it looked very good. I haven't seen it, but I didn't think it looked very good.
Yeah, I didn't either. I think I only watched it because a podcast I follow was reviewing it, and I like to stay on top of their reviews.
Right.
But yeah. So that's The Accountant, and I think that'll do it for this week's episode of The Obsessive Viewer. Next week, Tiny, we talked about taking a week off.
Yeah, it's Thanksgiving. So.
It is. It's Thanksgiving week, and then I kind of realized that Fantastic Beasts comes out this weekend.
Oh, jeez.
So I don't know. We'll probably take a week off, and then next week, Thanksgiving weekend, we are going to be at Starbase Indy. I think we're going to have a panel on Sunday. That's Sunday. We're going to be talking about movies that never got made or sequels. Basically, development hell. Is what we're gonna be talking about with Mike George over at Starbase Indy. We're really excited to be back there again. It's always a treat. So stay tuned for that. The week after next, we might have an episode next week. We probably won't. We'll probably take a week off. So having said all that, is there anything else that we need to say?
I don't think so. We love you, Emperor Trump.
Oh God!
So he doesn't throw us in a gulag.
Thank you guys for listening, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks.
Thank you for listening to The Obsessive Viewer, presented by ObsessiveViewer.com. You can find more of our episodes at ovpodcast.com, and you can subscribe to the show on iTunes, Stitcher, or your preferred podcast app. The Obsessive Viewer's theme song is An Eclipse of Events and is provided by Loudlike from their EP Mistakes We Must Make. You can find that and more great music from them on iTunes and like their Facebook page at facebook.com/loudlikemusic. Any and all feedback on the podcast is encouraged. You can email the hosts individually at Matt, Tiny, or Mike at obsessiveviewer.com or send an email to the podcast in general at podcast@obsessiveviewer.com. Check out the Obsessive Viewer blog at obsessiveviewer.com, where we post movie and TV reviews and the occasional editorial about the business of entertainment. You can also like us on Facebook at facebook.com/theobsessiveviewer and follow us on Twitter at obsessiveviewer, at obsessivetiny, and at IamMikeWhite. If you want more obsessive content in your life, check out our sister site, obsessivebooknerd.com, for book reviews, author spotlights, and a general celebration of reading. Finally, if you're philosophically curious, check out Tiny's side project podcast, The Secular Perspective, which explores the concepts of faith, religion, and existence from the perspective of secular hosts. You can find that at thesecularperspective.com and subscribe to the podcast on the podcatcher of your choice. Again, thank you so much for listening. We love you. Be excellent to each other.